Wonderful. So we're going to start off with a quick message from the Lieutenant Governor. So I'm going to share my screen here and we will get started.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, and I use she, her pronouns. Welcome to today's Equity in Farming Virtual Lunch and Learn, hosted by my office. I want to take a moment to thank our panelists for sharing their knowledge and spreading the word about resources that can help cultivate an agriculture industry as vibrant and as diverse as the state of Illinois. I also want to thank all the farmers and growers joining us today. If you're just starting out in the industry, or in your time in ag, you've struggled to find others who look like you or understand your experiences, know that your work is so important. I firmly believe that because ag connects us all. And in fact, that's the name of my office's Agricultural Equity and Food Insecurity Initiative. As part of this initiative, we've traveled all across the state to listen and learn from stakeholders just like you. It was inspiring and so enlightening. We learned that one of the top needs to make ag more equitable was access to knowledge about statewide programs and pools of funding that can benefit your work. So we're doing just what makes ag so powerful, what makes your work so invaluable. We're connecting. Today, you get to hear directly from leaders of state and federal agencies about the resources that can benefit your work. You're in store for an insightful conversation, and members of my staff will be here for the hour to help continue the dialogue, get answers to your questions, and most importantly, to stay connected. Thank you, and I'll now pass it over to Nick Davis.
Okay, so thank you all again so much for joining us today. My name is Nick Davis. I am the Senior Manager for Strategic Engagements and Initiatives at the Office of the Lieutenant Governor, and I'm going to be facilitating this space today. I'm going to start off giving a little bit of context, agenda, and then going through some of the ground rules for this space. So this is really in response to need from the community that we have heard to be connected with personnel from our state and federal agencies to get a sense of what programs exist to meet farmers' needs and what gaps there might be that the state can work towards to provide more resources to address people's needs. This is largely stemmed out of our agriculture, equity, and food insecurity strategy called Ag Connects Us All, in a series of listening sessions that we did throughout the state where we were hearing this kind of feedback from community members on the ground. This is only the beginning of many of these types of events that we want to host. But we really wanted to make sure that soon after engaging with folks in community, that we delivered on the promise of connecting you directly with agency personnel who are running programs that you all can take advantage of. The topic of conversation today is around resources that socially disadvantaged farmers and new and beginning farmers might be able to take advantage of within our various state agencies. So we're going to have 4 excellent presentations today. We have the representation from the Department of Agriculture, the Illinois Department of Agriculture, the USDA Farm Service Agency, Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. We'll have them go through and have their presentations, and we'll do a Q&A at the very end. Throughout the presentations, feel free to utilize the Q&A function or the chat to ask any questions that come up as these presentations are going along. If you should see a little Q&A box in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, but if you do not see that panel, there's a few ellipses at the very bottom right of your screen. Next to the messenger function, and when you click on that, there should be something to pull up the Q&A function. But if that does not, if you do not see that there, feel free to just pop any questions that you have directly into the chat. And my team will make sure to catch those. If you have any technical issues, feel free to direct message Victoria from our team, and she'll do her best to address those issues. Also, closed captioning is available in the same area that you can find the Q&A section. And after the meeting, there will also be some follow-up from our team that I'll talk about at the very end. Um, but now I'm excited to introduce our very first panelist, Rob Barron, the Legislative Liaison at the Illinois Department of Agriculture. Rob, would you mind kicking us off?
Got it. Thank you, Nick. Again, my name is Robert Barron. I'm the Legislative Liaison at the Illinois Department of Agriculture. I'm going to share my screen here. And hopefully it will all work out perfectly. And here we go. Today, I want to discuss with you the Illinois Farmer Disparity Study that the Department of Agriculture and partners are working on. The goal of the study is to identify quantifiable disparities and provide data to inform policymakers. I think a lot of folks on this call are well aware of the many challenges as well as historic disparities in the agricultural community. And the goal of the study is to put that information statistically on paper. How we got here. The Farmer Equity Act was passed about 4 years ago by Representative Sonia Harper, who is also the House Chair of the House Agriculture Committee. It's been amended a couple of times, most recently in January of 2021, which was Senate Bill 1792, passed by Representative Harper and Senator Christopher Belt, that represented one of the pillars of the Legislative Black Caucus agenda. And it included a mandate that the Department of Agriculture perform a disparity study. It's a somewhat lengthy discussion, but the 6 areas that we are focusing on are issues surrounding farm ownership, distribution of farm income, accessibility and availability of finance methods to access farmland or participate in agriculture, access to technical assistance, and participation in education, as well as interest in farming by young or beginning farmers. So that's the real sort of technical legislative language that is informing us as to what we are supposed to do as a part of this disparity study. So we put together a group of university partners to complete the study. We brought in experts who can help the department and have the type of academic expertise that we need to perform what amounts to a real groundbreaking study. We worked with the 4 major agricultural schools in the state, which is the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Illinois State University, Southern Illinois University, and Western Illinois University. What's important about those institutions is that they have internal academic experts on performing a study of this nature, as well as experts from outside of their colleges of agriculture who can assist with the study as well as processing the data. So these are our team leads, and each of our team leads from the 4 universities have a team within that university to handle the portions of the study. And that's Dr. Amy Ando at U of I Champaign, Dr. Jevashver Asirvatham at SIU, Dr. Chris Merritt, who heads the Illinois Institute for Rural Affairs at Western Illinois University, and Dr. Aslihan Spalding at Illinois State. We've also put together a group of external resources who've been helping us through this process. I very much want to acknowledge Dr. Susan Ogwell from the Office of Lieutenant Governor. Dr. O has been very helpful as we get going. And I know that Nick Davis, who's also on this call, was helping out with this process as recently as last week, so thank you all. We've also brought in Dr. Mark Schleusner. He's with the USDA National Agricultural Statistics Service and is actually headquartered out of the Illinois Department of Ag in Springfield. And then our internal coordinators here at the department are myself and Christy Jones, who's our deputy director. So that's the team that is heading up this effort. Now to give you kind of what we're doing. There are two key parts of this process, and when I say that we've been working to get to this point for about a year, it has been a long process to make sure that we get together the type of resources we need and get the background put together. The first part of this is the farmer survey, and I'd actually hope to have a link to that today. It should go live, hopefully, if not today, tomorrow. That survey can be completed online. It's open to agricultural producers, ag workers, prospective participants in agriculture, and students of agriculture. We want to capture as large a universe as possible and get as much data as possible. So we are having a very flexible, very open definition as to what who those prospective participants in this study are, who complete this survey. I know that this link will be distributed to networks throughout the state, focusing on all areas of agriculture and agricultural systems, the university systems, community colleges. We'll certainly get it over to the Lieutenant Governor's office. The sort of limitation, and this is an academic ethics portion, is that participants do need to be over 18 years of age. We will reach out to alumni networks as well. The data that we get from this will be compiled by the academic team. It'll be processed and reviewed and then interpreted for inclusion in the study. So as much data as we can get, the best to provide as much information as possible as we develop the study. The other thing that we're going to do is do focus group work. These focus groups are going to be held throughout the state. The focus group team has developed a list of questions that will go to all focus group participants. Again, the participants must be over 18 years of age. All of those discussions will be transcribed. So all of that goes into a written format. The academic team handling the focus groups will review this. They'll go through all of that information, and then that transcription will be brought together for inclusion in the study. There will be a couple of other informal discussions that will occur around the study. That'll include things like working with educators. So that's the study process. We're hoping to have a preliminary report together to meet the legislative mandate of December 31st of 22. But we do want to make sure that this study gets the full attention it needs, and we recognize this is on a national basis one of the first to really address disparities in agriculture, particularly disparities in a large agriculture producing state. So that final study presentation will occur in the first quarter of 2023, which likely will mirror the seating of the Agriculture Equity Commission here at the department. So it's a lot of information, I recognize, but it right now is still a bit in that phase where that information can be a bit dry, because we're getting to the rubber meets the road portion of this, which is where we get information in from a diverse group of Illinoisans with an interest in agriculture, so that we can make sure that, again, the Lieutenant Governor is committed to this. I know the Governor is committed to this, and our Director, Jerry Costello, is committed to ensuring that anyone in Illinois who wants to participate in agriculture has the opportunity to do so. I thank you all for your time on this. I look forward to getting this process completed and rolling out this groundbreaking disparity study. This is something that we at the department are very excited to do, and I know our academic partners are as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Robin. I know that we really appreciate your partnership at the Department of Agriculture, and also we'll be doing what we can to make sure to blast that study out to as many people as possible. And feel free, folks, as you have questions, to add them to the chat in the Q&A function. And now we will be having a presentation from Scott Halpin at the Farm Service Agency. And I'll be sharing my screen with Scott's slides. Scott, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, so Nick, I only have the one slide that I sent to you with our contact information. As some of you all might know, that the USDA and the Farm Service Agency is fairly new to the urban ag space and programs that we can offer. As part of the directive that came down from the Biden administration and Secretary Vilsack, we are challenged and charged with standing up a urban ag office in the city of Chicago to try to do more outreach and reach out to urban producers to make them aware of what services that we have with the Farm Service Agency. As you all probably know, the Farm Service Agency has long history of supporting primarily commercial crops, and we're very good at that. And the directive has been to let's do the same thing with urban ag producers and smaller specialty crop producers. So that's what we are doing. Currently, where we're at in this process, and I did have a chance to briefly talk to Lieutenant Governor Stratton at the picnic this year at the state fair. Nick and I have had some conversations a couple times, and then Rob, talked to Rob a little bit about what we're up to. So I think that we can all work together to try to identify areas where we can help each other out. But where we're at in this process is trying to find a physical facility in the city of Chicago where we can put a few employees. So the model that we've been given, there's been 17 cities in the United States that have been identified to put these urban ag offices. The model we are going to follow is each state or each city where we're going to run these pilot programs will have 2 staff from the Farm Service Agency and then 2 staff from the NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Services. I do think that urban folks are more familiar with services from the NRCS because they have been more active in helping grow uncontaminated soils and things like that. So you're probably more familiar with some of their services, but we'll have 2 FSA employees and 2 NRCS employees in these offices when we get them stood up and running. It's kind of challenging at this point to try to kick things off because we don't have a facility and we also don't have employees up there to do the work. So currently our model is Cook County is serviced out of the USDA Service Center in New Lenox. So we have a combined Will Cook office that is in New Lenox. So anything that we offer is available to be serviced at that facility, but the goal is to get a service center that is more convenient for urban producers in the city of Chicago. So important note there is right now services are available through the Will Cook Agency. The northwest part of Cook County, it appears to us that those folks that are currently using FSA services prefer to go out to the DeKalb Service Center. So much like the services that are offered in the Will Cook, Some of those producers are choosing, because it's closer, they're choosing to go out to the DeKalb Service Center. With every program that FSA offers, you are able to go to any service center in the United States to get service. So if you happen to be on vacation somewhere and needed to sign some paperwork and you're in South Carolina, you can do that. So you're not limited to just going to your home service center. So the challenge is identifying the location, and what they've given us for criteria is they want us to identify where the urban farmers are at and try to centrally locate. We're finding that this is a little bit of a challenge because there is no central database, and maybe somebody can point me to some of these data points, but there is no central database that identifies every urban farmer in Cook County. So we've used what data we have, and we've kind of narrowed down where we think the office needs to be. So the first challenge was trying to find where the facility should be located. They've asked us to make sure that it is very accessible, meaning available from highway, from walking, from public transportation, which means metro bus or the metro rail, the bus. So they want it very accessible. So that'd be a second thing. The third thing is safety. Even in our rural offices, we're having challenges because we're a federal agency. We get the occasional producer comes in, or the occasional someone off the street that is just upset with government. So once in a while, we do get an unfortunate situation throughout the entire state, and that's not going to be limited to the Chicago office at all, because it's happening in all of our counties. The safety of the people and the safety of our vehicles. Unfortunately, we're finding throughout the state, and NRCS we're having a lot of catalytic converters cut off of vehicles. So they want us to make sure that we have very secure facilities and put these offices in places that are safe for everybody and our producers coming in. So again, I mentioned we seem to be a target for some of this stuff because we are a federal office. So it's just something we have to deal with Homeland Security about occasionally. Thankfully, it's not a real problem. I already mentioned that there will be 2 NRCS and 2 FSA folks when we do get these stood up. And the next step, once we get a building, and even in the meantime, we need to hire staff. Currently, the way we're supposed to do things is we have each what we call county committee, and we're going to stand up a county committee in Chicago. They will have represented farmers. They will be on these county committees. So the current model says that the county committee has to hire the staff, which would be the CED is what we call them, county executive directors. So until we get identify farmers and start getting farmers signed up, we will be looking for nominations for a December timeframe. Nominations will have to be in by the first week of December, and then we will hold an election to get a 3-member panel elected for our urban county committee, is what we're calling them. And then they will be charged with hiring the manager of this county office. So in the meantime, we're kind of limited to just hire 1 program technician to try to get some assistance in these activities that we're starting up. So we're kind of running a circle there. We need staff there to sign up farmers and do outreach, but we have to have our county committee before we hire the county executive director. So we're running through that challenge, trying to get this office stood up. Current programs that are available through FSA. We do have farm loan programs, and I do have Crystal Zwilling in here sitting listening to our conversation. If there were some questions maybe afterwards, Crystal would be here available to answer them. So our farm loan programs. So one thing we do is real estate loans. There's young farmer and beginning farmers loans that have a preferred interest rate. So real estate loans is our main thing. And then the other thing that could be really intriguing as we get this office up and running is our farm storage facility loans. As I said, we're really good at commercial crops, which would be your grain bins, grain legs for commercial facilities. But this also encompasses like cold storage and how we, different handling things for produce. So the umbrella is pretty big at things that we can loan money on. So as we get going, that would probably be something that would be really of interest to urban farmers. During the, let's say that I think it was during the last administration, there was a program called CFAP, the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. And this was a program that was available for specialty crop producers. The problem we had with that is you did not have to be registered with us as a farmer. So even though you could have received benefits, it was not, I don't think it was not widely known what was available, which is a problem. And then we did not have to keep track of those producers that registered for these things. Fortunately, our county office in New Lenox did keep track of producers that did sign up for these, and we were able to put them on a map and kind of pinpoint things together. So there's also a program called NAP coverage, which would be a crop insurance that would be available for specialty crops. So those are kind of some of the highlights of what's available currently. There's no telling what's going to be down the road and programs developed. But I think the important note here is that we're trying to work to establish a facility, establish an office, to get staff on and start to build our urban agriculture office and our urban ag portfolio. So Nick, I think that's kind of a high level view of what we have going and what's available currently. And if there was any questions on farm loan stuff, I do have Crystal here, but we're available to try to answer some questions.
Thanks so much for that, Scott. That was really helpful. And we're gonna save the questions for the very end, just right after all the presentations. So if you can stick around for a little bit, but thank you so much. That was really helpful, and it's good to hear the direction that you all are going. And I'm sure we can, get some assistance with figuring out a location for you in Chicago as well. Fantastic. So next up, we have Michelle Blomquist from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. Michelle?
Hi, thank you very much for having me. Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. Maybe, there we go. Okay. Hi, my name is Michelle Blomquist. I'm the manager of the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. So this is a conservation program that's available to agricultural landowners within Illinois. And I wanted to tell you just a little bit about this program. It has been gone for a little while. We were closed for about 7 years, but it is reopened now. It reopened in June. So enrollment is currently going on right now. So give you a little bit of a background with CREP. So we call it CREP. It's a sub-program of the Conservation Reserve Enhancement, or excuse me, the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP. What landowners do is they enroll frequently flooded and environmentally sensitive cropland into a federal CREP contract with Farm Service Agency, FSA. DNR extends the terms of that contract by rolling it into a grant of conservation right and easement agreement, or what we like to call an easement, just plain easement, for 15 years or in perpetuity beyond the federal contract. And the goals for CREP are to improve our water quality and improve our fish and wildlife habitat. Now, where is CREP? CREP isn't statewide, but it kind of goes through the 2/3 of the middle of the state. We enroll acreage in the Illinois River watershed and the Kaskaskia River watershed. The cropland must be located within the 100-year floodplain or a previous wetland that maybe was converted to farmland. That's the only land outside of the floodplain that is eligible. And currently we have just over 1,300 CREP easements on the landscape, protecting about 90,000 acres. Most of those easements, those little red dots that you see on your screen, those are easements. A lot of them are in that Illinois River watershed, and that's because we've had enrollment for about over 20 years in that watershed. Kaskaskia is a little bit less because we only started enrollment in 2010, and then we had to close down. So we're just now getting going on that area. I'll give you a little bit of a background on the federal side of CREP. So what you do is you go into your FSA office, and they would they would determine your eligibility, and then they would if you were eligible, they would execute a 15-year federal CREP contract. You get enhanced annual rental payments on top of the regular CRP soil rental rates. FSA will pay 50% of the cost share to install those practices on that acreage. All acreage that goes into a federal CREP contract must enroll on the state side. And FSA and NRCS are responsible for all of the management of those acres during that contract. Now, the state side, where you get that E, is we extend and enhance those federal CREP contracts. And we do that through the easement, as I was telling you. So, of course, there's a 15-year and a permanent easement. And this easement timing begins after the federal CREP contract ends. So when you executed a contract with FSA for that federal CREP contract, you have a 15-year contract with them. If you get a 15-year easement with the state, that's added on to the end of that 15-year contract. So it's actually 30 years of conservation. And another thing that we do is we enhance those acres by allowing landowners to enroll what we call additional acres. So this is land that's just adjacent to the federal CREP contract acres, but it's not enrolled in that contract. It contributes to the goals of CREP by protecting and enhancing those acreage. Now, FSA pays annual payments. The state does not. The state pays a lump sum one-time payment, and that is paid at easement execution, which is usually about 12 to 18 months to execute an easement. Our payment formulas are based on the soil rental rate, just kind of like CRP is. I've got the permanent and the 15-year easement rental rates, or excuse me, formulas on the screen right now if you'd like to see those. And then we also pay 50% of the cost share for those conservation practices on the federal CREP acres only. Now, to give you a little bit of information about those CREP easements, so the landowner retains their rights for recreation. So we allow hunting, fishing, temporary camping. You could have leasing or food plots. Forest or wildlife management is also allowed. We do restrict agricultural use, so you can't farm it anymore. You can do a food plot, but you can't harvest that food plot. And any development, you can't build new buildings, you can't add new roads, those type of things. You can, however, make changes to the cover, the conservation cover, if you choose to. So say you have a grassland and you want to plant trees, we're great with that. We just ask that you have an approved management plan prior to making any of those changes. Now, this is only on expired federal CREP contracts and the additional acres. So when it's under the federal CREP contract, all changes have to go through FSA and NRCS. Now, these easements run with the land, so they're not tied to the specific landowner. So if you sell the property, that easement continues on with the property, and the new landowner is obligated to follow the easement document. These easements cannot be bought back, and public access is not required, but it can be allowed if the landowner chooses to do so. Now, your local soil and water conservation districts are, one of your first stops if you were interested in CREP. They are one of our biggest partners in this in CREP. They've been with us for over 20 years. And honestly, without the assistance of CREP, CREP could not exist. They really are our backbone of the program. They guide the landowner through the enrollment process. They conduct monitoring, which there's 3-year rotation monitoring on all CREP easements. They're your local contactor. If you're interested in CREP or if you're a current landowner, they're the place to go to answer some of your questions. And then we work as a team with the SWCDs to advise and guide landowners towards their management goals. So we help to continue on any of those management that the landowner would like to do. So if you're interested in CREP, there's a couple of contact informations on there. You can contact DNR at that email address, or you can visit our website. You can also contact FSA or the SWCD through your local service center, and the locator is on the screen there. And thank you very much for all of your attention, and I'll answer any questions at the end.
Thank you so much for that, Michelle. That's super helpful. And continue to post your questions in the chat that we'll address at the very end. And we'll also be sending out follow-up email with all of the contact information for everyone who's presenting as well, so that you all have that in case you want to reach out for further questions. So last but not least, we've got Tiana McCall from Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Tiana, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiana McCall, and I am the Northern State Line Regional Manager from, can you guys see my screen?
We see your video, but not your screen right now.
Share. Okay, I'm sorry.
There you go.
I am Tiana McCall, and I'm the Northern State Line Regional Manager for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity for the Team RED, which stands for Regional Economic Development. So the Northern State Line region consists of Winnebago, Boone, Stevenson, and Ogle counties. So what I'm going to talk about, basically, I'm going to give a high level since we're running close to time about what we do, funding, some technical assistance, and some business enterprise practices. So what we do is Team RED, which stands for the Office of Regional Economic Development. Each regional economic development manager lives and works in the communities they serve. I mentioned I'm in the Northern State Line, so I have my 4 counties. We have 12 other managers throughout the state, and what we are charged with is facilitating economic development efforts in our region. So what we're doing, we're providing the communities with frontline access to the state programs and services that are offered. We also have a division within our department called the Office of Minority Economic Empowerment. We call them OME. So what OME does is they provide minority, women, and persons with disabilities, veteran-owned small business owners. So mainly the marginalized owned businesses and entrepreneurs across the state with equitable access to opportunities and resources. So the key takeaways is Team RED and Team OME. We're in the regions that we're serving, and we're facilitating economic development efforts in those regions. You can't really see this, but it just shows how it's divided between, I said we have the 12 regional economic development managers, and we have the OME members, the 3 that are serving under those titles. So how we work together is, so we have the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. We're like the nucleus. And so we provide assistance to programs and companies that are currently operating in the state. So our stakeholders are the business communities, the local. What we're doing is we work together for people or businesses that want to relocate to Illinois, or they're looking to retain businesses with Illinois. The main thing that we're focusing on is we're developing strategic planning for regional economic development, for business recruitment, workforce development, local investment, and partnerships. So OME works on creating a statewide inclusive business ecosystem, and they also work on removing systematic barriers. This slide just basically talks about how OME is the frontline equity bureau. So the dynamic partnerships we have targeted outreach, as I mentioned before. It's minority, women-owned, veteran-owned, and sorry, I missed that, lost my place. But what we do is we connect those business resources and opportunities together with OME. They develop strategic partnerships. They're driving equity-centered programs. like through the back to business outreach. We have different funding that's available. So one of our loan program that we have is called the Advantage Illinois program. So what the Advantage Illinois program does, it is provide funding for loans where borrowers have difficulty accessing traditional funding. So what it is DCO takes the subordinate position. So they're reducing the risk for the lenders. So we can explain it more if you're interested in different fundings, like through the loans of the Advantage Illinois. Through the office of the OMI office, they have their loan is called the Fund for Advancement of Minority Enterprise, or FAME. And what they do is FAME is the offshoot of the Advantage Illinois loans made to minority women, disabled, and vendor-owned businesses. So in addition to having the Advantage Illinois opportunity, you also have another layer to it through the FAME program for the minority population. We have different grant fundings. Currently, we have the Business Attraction and Prime Sites Capital Grant Program. We have some upcoming programs that's coming out, which is the Back to Business Startup COVID-19 Adaptation Grants, Back to Business Reactivating Downtown Grants. OMI has a lot of grants that are out there as well, as well as the Small Business Development Centers. And you can always find the full list of grants on our website, the Illinois Department of Commerce Economic Opportunity, and go to the Grant Opportunities tab. We have also on our website, it tells you how to get pre-qualified for some of our grants. So there's on the slide, it just shows you a step-by-step on how to make sure that you are eligible to be considered for one of our grants. We offer technical assistance. So if you are applying for the grants, or you are thinking about applying, we have what we call our technical assistance. So the state provides several different ways to get this technical assistance and resources for small businesses. We have a First Stop Business Information Center. We also have the Small Business Development Centers, and we have what we call the Community Navigators. The information for the First Stop Business Information Center, it's a single statewide resource for entrepreneurs and businesses to obtain comprehensive regulatory and permitting information. So a couple of slides back, I kind of showed you or kind of went over the different steps that are needed to be eligible to receive grant funding. So the First Stop Business Information Center will be able to assist you in completing those steps. They also have a website and a toll-free number to assist as well. The Small Business Development Centers, they're located throughout the state, and they offer confidential business guidance, training, and other resources for startups and small businesses. So they have like one-on-one business advice and management services, assisting with development of business plans, things of that nature. They're also on our website. You can go to the link and you can find the closest small business development center in your area. They're located throughout the state of Illinois. Our new thing is the Small Business Community Navigator. It's been around maybe since inception, since COVID. And what this program is support, technical assistance and support for small businesses within the state. So the businesses targets Illinois who are identified in the underserved areas, such as minority, rural, veteran, and women-owned as such. What they do is they can find, because you're in that underserved area, you may find it difficult to access simple things such as the being able to use the internet or just unaware of services and resources that are available for you guys. So we have those community navigators that are located throughout the states that provides that hard to reach or underserved businesses. They provide the one-on-one technical assistance to these businesses and help them understand their eligibility to apply for the economic support. Our business enterprise program is committed to fostering inclusive and competitive business environments that will help businesses owned by minorities, women, and persons with disabilities to increase their capacity to grow revenue and enhance their credentials. This is also another one of the free programs. The eligibility requirements are listed on the screen, and we also have all of these programs and information that is provided is on our website. We've also given a copy of this PowerPoint deck to the host to get out to all of you guys, the participants, to go in depth. And that's the end of my presentation. So try to do a little quick high level review of it so we can have time for our question and answer session. I see we have about 10 minutes left. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for that, Tiana. Appreciate you giving that presentation. Thank you to all of our panelists and presenters for the information that you all provided. That was really critical and really important beginning to this conversation. So thank you. I'm now going to open it up for questions, and I see that we have a few in the chat. And so I'm going to go over a couple of these because some of them were answered, but I want to make sure that people who are on the phone or who can't see the chat also are able to see the questions and answers for these questions. So Thomas Delgado asked, where can the public review the disparity study that Rob talked about in the first presentation? And Rob answered that the study, once completed, will be provided to the General Assembly and will be publicly placed on the Illinois Department of Agriculture website, and that the department will work to distribute the study as widely as possible. And I know that other state agencies will also be trying to push that out as well. So anyone who is registered for this event will make sure that the link to the survey gets pushed out to you once it is made available to the public. Then Liz Stelk asked Scott, what is the timeline on the Chicago office? For Scott's discussion of the FSA Chicago office, to which Scott answered that they submitted an area that they'd like to explore for the office. All leasing is handled from a central office in DC, so the timeline is not within their control. And then they're planning on using the new Lenox office as their temporary office address in order to get started. So they will be providing services that the office in Chicago might otherwise provide. I also see in here that Liz provided AUA as an excellent resource and map of urban agriculture throughout the city of Chicago, and that Roger mentioned that Howard Rossing at DePaul University also supports maintaining the map and has a list of Cook County producers and can be a resource there as well. So I'll make sure, Scott, that you're connected with Howard as well. Then we have a question from Eve, who is asking, he would like to know what programs does the Department of Ag have for urban growers, as well as the Department of Natural Resources and the Farm Service Agency, and that he would like to be part of any conversations that are happening around developing that programming. If any of those three speakers want to answer that question, they can. What I know is that the Department of Ag and particularly FSA, as Scott mentioned, are trying to figure out how to get more involved in urban agriculture initiatives more broadly, and are open to feedback or discussion of what types of services they might need. But that this and FSA opening an office in the Chicagoland area, as well as a few collaborations between our office and the Department of Agriculture, will lead to more initiatives around urban ag, even if the offices were not historically designed to serve the needs of like smaller scale urban growers. But Scott or Rob, do you want to take a stab at answering that question, or do you think that I covered it pretty well?
The stab I'll take obviously is Nick covered most of this pretty clearly. He is not taking credit for his leadership on some of the putting together some events. The the Illinois Department of Agriculture has, up until very recently, been predominantly a regulatory agency. So we are not a grant making agency. Having said that, we are moving to make some changes to allow for greater programming to come out of this department. We expect to have some relatively significant announcements shortly on things like local food, urban agriculture events. We, for instance, had 14 regional Midwestern directors from departments of ag throughout the Midwest, highlighting urban agriculture and urban agriculture efforts. But I want to be sort of clear, it is definitely a work in progress.
Thanks for that, Rob. And as some of these events around urban agriculture and local foods are manifest, anybody who's registered for these events, for this particular webinar will be informed about those. And we would love to have you at the conversation as we think about how better can our agencies support urban agriculture initiatives as well. And then Eve's also asked another question here, and it looks like he's looking for some support and follow-up around the Back to Business grant for DCEO. I don't know if I apologize. Tiana, I don't know if there's somebody at your office who we might be able to connect with Eve to maybe give some feedback around that grant, but I know that that it looks like he had some trouble reaching out to some folks at the DCEO office to discuss that grant.
I'm gonna put my email in the chat, and he can just send me that information, and then I can forward him to the appropriate person.
Okay, perfect. So, and also afterwards, I'll be making sure to send out panelist contact information, folks, in case folks need to reach out. But Eve, you can reach out to Tiana and have that conversation. Really, really appreciate that, Tiana.
Mhm.
And then Clarence from One Family Farms asked, what can we do as urban farmers to help meet your needs and help both sides scale up to make a bigger impact on the food system more broadly? And I think any of our panelists can take a stab at answering that. I think it's we're trying to figure out, what are the best ways to get community input on programs so that they actually serve the needs of growers. And so this might also be a question around, what kinds of forums can the state set up so that we can receive feedback about what types of programs are needed. But do any of our panelists have any thoughts on that?
Hey, Nick, I'll take a stab at some of this. There's a question back here asking what FSA programs, and I think I addressed that a little bit. We do have some crop insurance available, some NAP coverage available to specialty crops that might be of interest to urban farmers. But as far as scaling up, that's where I think once we get stood up, and we have the capability right now, but I think as we grow this, it'll be more available. But we have the loan programs for real estate and for facilities, the farm storage facility loans, where I think if you're wanting to scale up and grow your business, you would come in and present your business model and your case, and we could loan money on that. As Rob just mentioned, FSA does not handle grants. Sometimes there'll be some grants occasionally come out through the NRCS, which will also be part of this project in our office. But if you can come to us as FSA and make a business case and show us where you have the ability to pay back the loan, we have what we call micro loan programs. We have real estate loan programs. We have farm storage facility loan programs. And I think that's where we can ultimately have the most impact in this project, going in with their urban ag and urban farmers.
And I would add to Scott's comment here is, and it's certainly something that we're getting ready to do some work on, and that is putting together some durable networks of aggregation and distribution for products grown in particularly urban farms and specialty crops. What we find obviously is we have a lot of local farmers markets, and that's a great place. We have a lot of, particularly of our urban farmers that have contracted with individual restaurants, or they've set up with a CSA model. But finding ways that we can help very small scale farmers get their foods to market, and have that food aggregated to a larger scale that folks in the marketplace will want to purchase from. It's a challenge that we're doing some work on, and we'll probably be scaling up that investigatory process over the next year or so.
Thanks so much for that, Scott and Rob. And that will conclude our Lunch and Learn for the day. Really, really appreciate all of the panelists and attendees for showing up and presenting this critical information. And like I said, this is the very beginning of this conversation around how we continue to support new and beginning and socially disadvantaged growers moving forward as a state. Just as in terms of follow-ups, we'll be sending out a one-pager with some the information on agency personnel and the different resources that they discussed. We'll also be sending out a recording of the event, some highlights from the chat, and a little survey to collect some information from you all afterwards. So you'll be hearing from me in the next 24 hours around all of that. Your feedback is really important to us, and as we're ramping up efforts to build a roadmap for the state moving forward, we really appreciate your feedback and any outreach or collaboration you all want to do with our office. Thank you all so much for attending, and have a wonderful rest of your day.